Hello. You know what today is? It is Wednesday. So I ask that you join me on this journey as together we experience another episode of Against the Wall. Here we go. So today we're looking in the book of 2 Kings chapter 9. And I want to read a few verses to you. Starting in verse 30, it says, "When Jehu came to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it. And she painted her eyes and adorned her head and looked out of the window. And Jehu entered the gate and said, 'Is it peace with you, Zimri, murderer of your master?' And he lifted his face to the window and said, 'Who is on my side? Who?' 2 or 3 eunuchs looked out at him. He said, 'Throw her down.' So they threw her down, and some of her blood splattered on the wall and on the horses, and they trampled on her. Then he went in and ate and drank. And he said, 'See now to this cursed woman, and bury her.' Said, 'For she is a king's daughter.' But when they went to bury her, they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. When they came back and told him, he said, 'This is the word of the Lord, which he spoke by his servant Elijah, the Tishbite. In this territory of Jezreel, the dogs shall eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the corpse of Jezebel shall be as dung on the face of the field in the territory of Jezreel, so that no one can say, this is Jezebel.'" Wow, right? Think about it. So what happens here is Elisha has now went and had Jehu anointed as king of Israel. And Jehu is really just, by God's command, he's cleaning house. Ahab, Jezebel, believed to be the probably most evil of the king and queen of Israel throughout its time. What they did, and you just got to go back and read the story. But what happens here is Jehu is, like I said, he's cleaning up. He's getting rid of Ahab and everybody and anybody that had to do with him, all the family. So he comes to see Jezebel. And as he comes into town, he rides in. There she is. She paints her face all up. She makes herself look good. And then she basically calls him a rebel who ended up getting his. But what happens is he's like, "Who's on my side?" And a couple of eunuchs, like, probably really tired of Jezebel. They're like, "Yep, we're here. What do you want?" "Throw her down." And they threw her down, and she hits the ground. Blood goes everywhere. This is a horrible story, but she's dead. Horses trample on her. Jehu goes in, has something to eat, and he says, "Go bury her. She's a king's daughter." When they go back, they only find a few pieces of her. And they're like, "There's not much left." And he's like, "Well, this is what the prophet Elijah said would happen." Here's the thing. You're like, how does this awful story relate to me? Well, don't be a Jezebel, and you'll be okay. Have a great day. Now, I'm kidding. Seriously though, don't be a Jezebel. That's bad. And don't be Ahab, which most of us probably not going to be a king or queen anytime soon. But, all honesty, the problem is God allows us sometimes to be in positions of authority. But we got to remember, wherever we're at in life, God has put us there. And if we're doing wrong and we're continued wrongdoing, God has a way of saying enough is enough. And he punishes those. It's also a perfect example of sometimes God is calling us to, okay, he's probably not calling us to go kill people, in authority, but he's calling us to be a voice. Now, we're probably not going to be anointed king, but he can use us to say, this is wrong, and this is what we should be doing. Kind of harkens back to the last week's video that we did. The thing is, like I said, if we think we're getting away with things, if we think that we can, no matter, we can up to the end, make ourselves look good and say, look at me. But if we're not doing God's will, sometimes he has a way of using others to take us down. But also, on the other side of it, we need to understand that we can't be scared to speak out. We can't be scared to stand up when there's wrongdoing. If God is calling us to live a life faithful obedience to him, that means we've got to call it like it is. Not the way we see it, not the way we think it should be, but the way God says it is. And when we do that, we're being faithful to him and we're being obedient to his word and his direction and guiding our lives. So, that doesn't mean we should wear it like a badge of honor. Yeah, you're wrong. But we should be honest and not be afraid to speak up whenever we see wrongdoing. Hey, that's my word for the day. That's another episode of Against the Wall. That's the way it is. That's the way it should be. And that's the way I'm asking you to live. Not because I said it, but because God said it. And that's good enough for me. So until next time, have a great day. And we'll see you again in a week. Bye.